Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our study session. I think everybody's excited. We had some rain last night and wind and storm. And I thank you for the news release by our emergency center, our EOC, Robert Campa. Is that correct? Yeah, sending that notice out. Prepare for flooding. It's a great morning. It's nice to be cool, smell the fresh air. Welcome to our Mesa City Council session for September 4th. Vice Mayor Summers is absent and excused, and Council Member Adams, he should be online. I see his picture there. Nice looking picture, Council Member.
Well, it looks a lot better than I do, Mayor.
Well,
good morning.
Good morning. Understand you're on the East Coast. Enjoy that. Item 1 is to review the agenda we have for Monday, September 8th council meeting. Let's go through that agenda. Council, if you have any questions. I know there's 3 items for introduction, and Mary's quickly looking just in case there's any question. Have we had any council in any of your council districts about these introductions? I know there's one in District 2, District 1, 2, and then amendments to the Chapter 36, Title 11 of the Mesa Code. So Ms. Spilsbury, you have one, and Mr. Adams has one. These are for introduction.
Then I had I'm sorry, I should have reviewed it. It's been a few days since I looked at it. 6A, let me make sure it's still 6A. About the...
Oh, the Employment Opportunity District?
Yeah, yes, it's still 6A.
Would you like a discussion on that?
Yeah, I didn't quite understand what it was.
Well, Rachel is coming forward. Rachel, why don't you give us an overview of
Good morning,
6A?
Council. We do have a presentation. Would you like the presentation on this item? Yes. Okay.
Please.
Let's see if it is up here. Okay, so once again, good morning, Council. Rachel Phillips, Assistant Planning Director. So this item on the agenda is an amendment to the Employment Opportunity District, which is Chapter 14 of the zoning ordinance. And just as a little bit of a background, because you may not see this zoning district be used a lot, it's only been used twice within the city so far. So we have the Pecos Employment Opportunity District, and then for Google, correct, it was the Red Hawk. It was known by that name, but they also use this district. But what this is it's a flexible zoning district that allows an applicant to really tailor the land uses and the development standards to their project. So it allows them to establish what those are and what the processes are for going through the review. This was adopted by council in 2016 to really be a means to expedite the review for some of these larger projects that were going to be high employment generating businesses coming into the city. So it allows them to go through an administrative site plan once they get their EO district adopted. And what this amendment today is doing is it's 2 parts, and in a very basic form, we are repealing Chapter 14 and replacing it with a new Chapter 14 just due to the number of little text amendments in it. And then we're also amending Section 1186-1A, which is the purpose and applicability statement for the use type classification. So those are pretty much the definitions that explain what the different uses are within the zoning ordinance. And why we're doing this is we're really looking to enhance the utility of the EO district and to be able to expand its use to address some mixed-use projects that political subdivisions of the state might want to do within the city. And political subdivisions of the state, they are exempt from the local zoning for their governmental purposes. But if we have a case where they might want to do a mixed-use development that consists of some of their governmental purposes and then some commercial purposes, that commercial side of it, that is still under the city's jurisdiction. So what these text amendments do is to really try to create that flexible kind of regulatory framework so that we can address both parts of those, so both parts of kind of the authorities of those government entities. And so generally what we did is we did a few different amendments in here. One was to really just kind of clean it up and make it easier to use in general. But then there were some specifics to that political subdivision piece of it. So in general, some of those cleanups where we had to amend the general plan place types or the old character areas that were referenced in there. So those were updated to reflect our current place types. And then we modified the minimum area requirements to use the EO district and said that if you are amending an EO district, that there wouldn't be a minimum area to add additional land onto an existing district. Then we also made some amendments to create some more flexibility in the amendments to development standards. So if someone had an existing EO district and they wanted to come in and amend some of the development standards that they set, we made some flexibility in there to be able to adjust those based on the types of land uses and kind of groupings or categories of land uses, if that makes sense. Because sometimes you'll see that they create what's called a land use group. And you see those most often in the planned community district where they have a unique name for it, like, I'm trying to think of like campus, community campus, and they have a set of land uses under there that are allowed, and they kind of designate an area where that could be used. So this allows them to set up criteria specific to a land use group or specific to a project itself. And then, as I mentioned, just modifying language in the chapter for clarity.
Rachel, can I stop you there? Where's some examples of that? Mr. Butler, do we have some examples of?
Well, Rachel mentioned the two times that we've used this zoning designation within the city, but what she's talking about when we talk about political subdivisions is this is part of our partnership with ASU to unlock the potential of the ASU Innovation Zone at the Polytechnic campus. This zoning needed to be in place before we could finalize our agreements with ASU. And if you want to think about in practice today, it's Novus. It's the Novus corridor in Tempe, where you see that the partnership between Tempe and ASU that gave parameters for how ASU could develop in that area. And then ASU has that flexibility to go and following within those guardrails, go and develop as the market necessitates and as they have development needs coming in from different partners that they may have within that corridor. And you see a mix of everything from retail to restaurants to Class A office space. And that's exactly what we're envisioning as part of the Innovation Zone. Jay and her team have been working with ASU for a while on that, making sure that we have the proper uses and it's really in line with the type of businesses and environment that we'd like to create, drawing on employers and advanced manufacturing and semiconductor, everything that's tied to what's going on at the Polytechnic campus right now. But it needs to be a vibrant mixed-use environment like you've seen in communities like the Novus corridor in Tempe. So that's what we're setting the stage for right now. And then if council were to adopt this, that allows us to come back in the coming months to finalize some agreements that we have with ASU so that project can move forward.
Great. Council, any questions? Ms. Reddick.
Is this something that other entities like school districts can use as well for maybe a mixed-use development on their campuses and work with the city on something like that? Not sure if we've had conversations with the school districts here, but is that something that other entities, other political subdivisions can use to work with the city on maybe looking at options with their campuses?
Mayor, Councilmember Heredia, so it does apply to political subdivisions as a whole, but there are some minimum area requirements to be able to use this district, so that's 140 contiguous acres. So they would have to have that land available to be able to utilize it.
Is that set by statute, or why so much land, or?
Council, so originally it was 160 acres is what the existing minimum area is, and that was really to ensure that it was a large, large development, kind of comprehensive campus to be able to use that tool.
Okay.
Mayor and Councilmember Heredia, I will say though, we've had conversations with the school district and others about, opportunities, looking at their land and reuse in the future and different ways that they can optimize some of their land holdings. So we'll certainly, whether this is the tool or not, this may not be, but we've expressed our willingness and our desire to want to work with them on their ability to utilize their land to the best opportunity available.
Mr. Adams, any questions?
I'm just curious, within the city, how many parcels of 140 or more contiguous acres exist? Is this very limiting, or I'm trying to picture where, other than what Mr. Butler referred to earlier, where such a parcel might exist?
Mayor, Council, I don't have it in front of me, but we did look at that. It's a limited number. I would say less than 5 exist in the city right now. There might be the potential for more if land would annex in, but it's only a handful right now that have that size.
Are we limiting ourselves by requiring 140? I get where 160 may have come from. It's a quarter of a section, but nonetheless, I just wonder: are we limiting ourselves, or is there a reason that we want to stick with 140 contiguous acres? Just curious.
So Mayor, Council, if I can, one of the things we want to look at is this is really about creating jobs. So what we're looking at is those large-scale employment type of areas. There are other tools, or are other overlay districts that other types of uses can use. This really is about either a single parcel or several parcels coming together to have the overlay placed on them so that we start to look at these large employment campuses. That really is what this is trying to focus on. But again, we have other overlay tools that can be used for projects that might be smaller. For example, in Fiesta, we had the ID district. So there are criteria that need to be met for that, but there are other tools. And it's one of the things that we're looking at over maybe the next year or so, is how we try to streamline all of these overlay districts that allow for these types of uses.
Okay, now that you describe it as an employment campus, I get it. I understand. Thank you.
Ms. Goforth?
Since it is trying to, it is about jobs and employment, how are we ensuring that there's a certain number, or, because I'm not sure, Google's probably a great example, right? I don't know how many jobs that produced. So how do we ensure that?
Mayor, Council Member Goforth, I can't speak to Google itself, but as part of using the EO district for the political subdivision, they would be required to enter into a development agreement or an intergovernmental agreement with the city. And maybe Jim would want to speak to more to that, but there would be some parameters as far as how much commercial could be developed alongside with the governmental purpose portion of the project.
Mayor and Council, this is sort of the first tool. You're going to see a development agreement and IGA come in a few months, and then you'll see the specifics. But we needed to put this in place before we did the agreement, and these are the changes necessary to facilitate that agreement and also facilitate the development as ASU envisions it. And so that's, it's hard to see these sometimes without a site plan, without something to see with it, and that's why it's sort of abstract when you see the bullet points, and that's sort of the problem. But this is really just sort of the groundwork so that all the other things that will be coming to you in the future.
So there's no sort of parameters that we put around that says this is the ratio of employment to the commercial part, the mixed use part. I don't know. We don't do any of that.
So Mayor, Council, if I
In the
can, the next step, if council approves these EO changes, is that when ASU comes in, they'll have to submit an EO development plan. And in that plan, they will identify, and similar to what we did with Fiesta, we would probably put those parameters of, you know, the amount of residential before, or the amount of commercial that has to happen before the residential, and you know, the research. So we're not sure what those parameters look like because we don't have that development plan, but that is the next step once, if city council decides to adopt these amendments.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, Ms. Duff?
No, I'm good.
Great. I think this is really important for us to, yesterday I had a meeting with President Crow, Mr. Butler and I, and they're excited about moving a downtown campus here in Mesa. And this provides a lot of flexibility, not only Novus, but SkySong too, as part of their developments too. And I really think this is important for us to move forward with this opportunity zone for them. And I look forward to seeing how it matures in the future. Any other questions? All right. I know we went on 6A. Is there any, thank you, Rachel. I think we ought to move over to 5A. I think that's a really important one, Ms. Duff. Cul-de-sac ground lease. Somebody want to speak on that? Jeff, is Jeff here? Jimmy? I know you sent out an email yesterday, late afternoon, early evening. I didn't have any questions, but maybe council does. Why don't you just review the whole thing, Jeff, please, Jimmy? Not the whole thing. Like 10% of it.
Good morning, Mayor, Council, Jeff McVeigh, and Jimmy Chiracchio. Yes, we're happy to be here today. As a reminder, what you have before you today, or what you'll have before you on Monday, is a ground lease that which is actually functioning as a development agreement and an option to purchase the property. The agreements that you have in front of you currently are marked as draft, and just to explain for those that maybe didn't get to see my email, they're marked as draft because we were negotiating right up until earlier this week, and when we got the documents finalized, we negotiated all the agreements, including the first phase development agreement. The first phase development agreement essentially has all the same terms as phase 2 and phase 3, but we only want to have to negotiate and draft one development agreement at a time. And then once one was done, we were able to take that and essentially change the names to protect the innocent. So phase 1 became phase 2, phase 3 became phase 3, and we'll be able to have those development agreements inserted later today so that the full documents will be ready for everybody. Just some of the highlights we're looking at. With this project, the first phase will be 144 sale townhome units that would be completed by, I believe, 2027.
Correct.
Or I'm sorry, they must commence construction by 2027.
Commence, yes.
Phase 2 would be 225 residential units, and phase 3 would be 425 residential units. In total, we're looking at 25 to 50,000 square feet of commercial space and 25 to 50,000 square feet of residential amenity space. I think one of the things that we didn't talk about a whole lot last week, and that I think is also important, there's going to be a significant amount of green space included in this project. One of the benefits that cul-de-sac will tell us is that by not having to have significant parking fields, that gives more room and more space to be able to have open space and amenities for their residents. In consideration for some of the incentives the city's providing, they're also providing us then with public access agreements so that the public has the ability to access those green spaces as well as their residents. It'd be hard for me not to just note the significance of this project in relationship to the history of Site 17. And I just broke the rule that Jim wanted to end last week, and I used the name, but one more time to remind us that, on Monday, council will have the opportunity to take a vote on hopefully a final solution for the future of Site 17. We're pleased to be to work on that. Jim and his team have been great to work with. The cul-de-sac team is here if you have any questions. They've been really good to work with as well as good partners. But we're happy to answer any questions that council may have.
And Mayor, just to clarify too, there's not been any substantial changes since Jeff presented to you. It's been more finalizing the documents and tightening up those agreements, but the material issues that he presented to you have remained the same since the council presentation.
Council? Just an easy question on the public access to the green space. Who maintains the open or green space?
That, Mayor, Council, that will be cul-de-sac's responsibility to maintain.
Okay.
Yes.
I just wondered who was going to incur that cost, but all right, great. All right, well, we look forward to transforming Site 17.
I
Mayor?
think we're going to elevate Site 17, Mayor.
Good point. I should
Mayor?
have thought of that. Rich, Mr. Adams?
Yes, before Mr. McVeigh retreats to the audience, a quick question. And I understand some of these negotiations are sensitive and confidential, perhaps, but I'm just curious. You mentioned that negotiations were underway up until very recently. I'm curious if you can tell us from the time the initial proposal was presented to council, has the city had to give anything up substantially, or are we still pretty much where we were? And I think cul-de-sac's a great project. I'm just curious if anything was substantially changed, or are we just talking dotting I's and crossing T's?
Mayor, Councilmember Adams, I think that it's a fair assessment to say that a lot of the final negotiations were minor points. We might have discussed how long of hours the park would need to be open for longer than probably was necessary, but the rest of the time was dotting I's and crossing T's. The substantial business terms that were included that are included are consistent with what we brought to council, I believe, 2 or 3 months ago for your direction. So from a business terms perspective, it has remained fairly consistent with what you have been presenting throughout the last year.
Good. Okay, thank you. That's all I need to know. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Great. Thank you, Jeff and Jimmy.
Thank you.
Anything on the agenda for Monday, Council? All good to go? Okay. Well, we'll move over to our study session. Item 2A is a presentation about the proposed Center Street Capital Improvement Project. Eric, thank you. In case this goes long, I have a hard stop at 8:45, and I'll shift gears over to Mr. Heredia to finish the meeting if we go that long. I've got to go over to the State Fire School here to the north and speak. Well,
Good
thank
morning,
you,
Mayor
Eric.
and Council. I'm excited to be here to talk about Center Street once again with Council. This has really been a discussion we've had over the last 5 years. We have more information and want to present to Council. So just a really quick overview. I'm going to try to keep things high level. And we're going to talk about just a little bit about the history, the project scope that we're bringing today, and really wanting to talk about a potential CIP project. It's a portion of Center Street. It's not the entire length of Center Street that we've talked about before. The project elements that are involved and staff's preferred alternative, and then what's next for Center Street. To jump into the history a little bit, there was a little before 2020, but I'll just pick up in 2020. We had the Mesa Moves bond program and additional projects that were part of that program with the Prop 400 reimbursement money. As part of the active transportation program, the Center Street project was discussed. We didn't have enough funding to be able to design and construct Center Street. So out of the Mesa Moves program, we decided to do a feasibility study to really look at Center Street and see what we could do with it. As part of that program, staff, our staff in transportation and in engineering had a project to do a design concept report to really look at a planning study to see if this was feasible. That plan took about about 18 months to do, and it was completed early in 2024. We presented those findings to the Sustainability and Transportation Committee of Council in the spring of last year. Also, I just want to highlight, as part of the 2024 bond package, there is $7 million allocated for streets projects. And then I think what has been really helpful for us as a transportation department, as a city, is we've had two other studies that have been happening in this area that have helped us understand Center Street a little bit more. The first is the Downtown Micromobility and Parking Study that Jeff's group is leading, and then also talking about the Convention Center Master Plan. Those have been presented to council this year also. So I think we've tried to merge all three of these reports together and what we've learned to try to come up with the best recommendation that we can. So today we're going to focus, this section of Center Street that we're going to be talking about is from Main Street to University. So this is what's right outside of City Hall here, up past the Convention Center to University. And really the goals, what we're looking for on Center Street is we want to enhance travel for people that are walking to and from downtown, bicycling to and from downtown, and also within downtown. We recognize that we have many more residents today than we did in 2020 when we first really started talking about this project. And so we want to do that. We want to provide a gateway into downtown, understanding that Center Street comes right into the middle of downtown. It really is our only north-south street that provides connections regionally that we can use for this type of project. There's not enough right-of-way on Mesa Drive or Country Club to look at doing this. The speeds are high on those streets. This really is our opportunity. And then our final goal, really, and it's what we heard from the Convention Center study, is we want to connect the Convention Center to downtown, and Center Street is the right location to do that. So as we've been looking at our study and all the other studies, there's a bunch of different project elements that we have to consider as we look at Center Street. We have a wide right-of-way. We have 77 feet of pavement between the curbs in some of the locations on Center Street. Part of the feasibility study that we did in 2023 and 2024 really focused on traffic operations. We wanted to make sure if we're going to take a lane of traffic from Center Street that it's still going to operate, especially in this section between Main Street and University. It necks down to one lane in each direction at Main Street anyhow. We don't have any concerns that by taking a travel lane in each direction that traffic is still going to function at the intersections. So really that way we can focus on some of these next bullet points, that we can provide enhanced bike lanes. We can use parking as a buffer. I think when we talk about enhanced bike lanes, putting the bike lanes up against the curb, having some sort of buffer between the travel lane and the bike lanes, so more people feel comfortable riding on those bike lanes. I know that's been a discussion item multiple times as I've been up in front of council. Really elevating the pedestrian experience with wider sidewalks, talking about shade, how to accomplish that. One item that we didn't have any inkling about until we got into the feasibility study and really started looking at the corridors, the possibility of a roundabout at 2nd Street to provide that gateway feature into downtown. I think it's important, although we're taking lanes of traffic, we realize we still need turn lanes at certain intersections, at University, at 1st Street, at Main Street. We need those left turn lanes to provide the capacity we need at those intersections. So that's important. And I think as we talk about this corridor, and if we're really trying to enhance walking, biking, making it a gateway, for this section between Main Street and University, we would look to reduce the speed limit to 25 miles an hour along the street. So those are all the elements that we've looked at. I think now as staff, we've had a lot of conversations, not just in transportation, but with downtown transformation. And we have some recommendations that we'd like to present to the council. The first is, I think we really need to look at widening the sidewalks, focusing between Second Street and Main Street to provide that connection to the convention center. If Second Street's going to be the start of our core downtown area, that we should have wider sidewalks. There should be shade on those sidewalks, and that there may be areas where we have to widen the sidewalk. We may have to push the curb out. There may be some curb reconstruction. We also want to provide separated bike lanes that are curbside. I think something different and that we've learned over the past couple years since we installed the bike lanes on First Avenue is we're actually, the bike lanes that we're proposing are 6.5 feet, which is narrower than what we have on First Avenue. And I think as we've been talking with our consultants, one thing we've learned is for separated bike lanes or enhanced bike lanes, they don't necessarily have to be a lot wider than what we have out on the streets today, but they need to have that buffering between travel and the bike lane. If you get them much wider than 6.5 feet, then those bike lanes could start to look like a travel lane, and motorists could mistake them for a travel lane. We're going to propose a 4-foot buffer between the bike lane and parking. We have looked at a bunch of different parking alternatives. We're suggesting that we keep the parallel parking that's out on, or not keep it in the same location, but continue to have parallel parking on Center Street. There'll be a 4-foot buffer between the bike lane and the parking, something that's different than how First Avenue is right now. We're also going to have a 4-foot buffer between the parked vehicles and the travel lanes. We have enough asphalt out there to do that. One of the complaints we've heard about First Avenue is with the parking not being up against the curb and trying to get out of the driver's side vehicle, you're right up against a travel lane. That's uncomfortable. We feel that this is a solution to do that. If we keep parallel parking, we can also then retain our turn lanes at our intersections, and we feel that that's important.
What is the speed limit on First Avenue?
The speed limit on First Avenue,
Yeah.
Councilmember, I believe it's 30 miles an hour.
Oh, it's just 30, okay. And you're proposing 25 on this? Okay.
Correct. We also, we want to move forward with the recommendation of a roundabout at Second Street for some of the reasons that I talked about earlier. We want to provide a calming effect with traffic. Most of the time with roundabouts, you don't have to stop, but you do need to slow down to go around them. We believe we can make it a gateway feature into downtown, recognizing that Center Street is on the parade route and that some large vehicles need to access the convention center. We do still need to do some design work to make sure that we can make a roundabout work in this location and still accommodate all of the movements that need to be there.
So just on that point, making sure, are we going to still utilize this as our parade route? Center Street from University and Center, like we typically do?
Mayor, we haven't entertained not using it as our parade route.
Or
Maybe
find
that's
a
a better way to
different
put it, but I mean, certainly an enhanced pedestrian experience with wider sidewalks and other things isn't necessarily a bad thing for a parade route, and so we can see how it works from a logistics standpoint of moving those larger vehicles.
Yeah, and I think, Mayor, we're not proposing a lot of features sticking up in the existing asphalt. A lot of it will be striping. There may be some delineators, but there'll still be plenty of room, plenty of width for the parade route on the street.
Okay, just making sure. I mean, we've used this for decades, and well, obviously we have our staging area in the parking lot, and then staging north of University on Center as we have our larger parades. So just making sure that's not compromised, that we can still have the best of both.
Yeah, I'm just trying to do some quick math in my head. There's going to be between 55 and 60 feet of pavement that
For the
not gonna-
roundabout area, for the,
The roundabout is the one area we really need to study. I think we'll obviously bring that back before we move to construction. But there'll be plenty of room still on Center Street for the parade.
okay, yeah. I was thinking primarily the roundabout.
Sure.
Could I jump in here?
Yeah.
I totally appreciate your thought on the parade, but I guess I would just caution building a street for one event that happens a year, right? Okay, sorry, 2, right? So
Maybe 3.
99% of the time, let's build it for that 99%. No, I get that the parade is important to us, but I would hate to see us, again, widen a space unnecessarily for 2 events. You know what I mean? I'm
And
just
Mayor,
giving the other
Councilmember,
side.
I think what
you
Eric's
know.
saying, though, is that we believe we can provide both this enhanced experience while maintaining the access that we need in order to get those larger vehicles in and out for the parade. That's what they're going to work on from an engineering standpoint, just to make sure we can accommodate that. But it's what I'm hearing from street width, that's not an issue. We've got plenty of room for the parade. It's just the roundabout, and we'll work through that. That's what we'll engineer to make sure that we can accomplish both goals on that.
Well, I didn't know it struck a chord like that.
Well, I think
Eric did say they're going to
the
study the roundabout to make sure it's the right width and everything to accommodate the parade. And I did say having best of both is important to Mesa.
And I think as we've gone through multiple studies and heard concerns, I think we're trying to be as transparent as possible as we bring forth everything that, no project never has 0 challenges. So, this is the challenge, but I think it's something important that can be a great asset to downtown, not just to Center Street, so.
Well, I think having wider sidewalks with shade, having the experience with a parade, brings more people, because as we've gone through the parades over the years, people have their umbrellas, they have their canopies, sometimes it's hot, weather's not always convenient here. But at the end of the day, we want to have people have a great experience in downtown Mesa. That's the whole purpose in building this. So.
Absolutely, and I think these changes will certainly make that parade experience much, much nicer for pedestrians.
Mayor, a quick comment, if I may.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I forgot about
Oh,
that.
no, you're fine. I think overall the project is something we should seriously consider. I've received, as I'm sure most of us have, a great number of positive comments from folks primarily in the cycling community and others. The shade is great. I think the reality is, though, and I'm trying to picture in my mind, how do you run a parade through that roundabout? And I think that's something we need to take a real hard look at. I'm kind of a traditionalist on these things. We've done this in Mesa for many, many years. All you have to do is show up for the various parades and see how many of our folks appreciate supporting them and attending them. So I'd be curious to see what Eric comes back with respect to that roundabout.
Very good. Thank you.
Sounds like it won't be the last conversation we have about it.
I doubt that.
So what's next for us? I think really what we're looking for is some direction to be able to move forward with moving into some more detailed design. I think, really we've been talking about this concept. We've done a high-level planning study to say, yes, it's feasible, but there are certain details that we haven't got into yet. And I think, that's really the next step that we need to do that. And that, we can use some of the 2024 bond money to start that design process. I think really as we get into design, we'll engage engineering to hire a designer. And hopefully this is a different enough project that will get some high quality designers that will bring additional ideas. But we really need to start the design process to provide more detail as you have questions about, will this work or not? And we can get into that. We need to do public outreach, and as part of the plans, I know there, with the multimodal study through Jeff's group, there was some public outreach, but we haven't done specific public outreach on Center Street yet. We need to do that. We need to identify any utility conflicts that are in the corridor. And then always the important one, what can we actually build for the money that we have? And so that's why we're here today. We want to receive some direction and hopefully be able to move forward with this project.
So, Mayor, I would just add too that I appreciate Eric and his team coming back with kind of a refocused project on this. As you know, this corridor that we initially looked at was much longer than this, on Broadway all the way up to the canal. And we had some different philosophies, I think, different priorities in different sections of this corridor that were really slowing down our discussion on maybe what I believe represents the most important part of that corridor, which is what's in front of you today. This project checks a lot of boxes. It's the safety enhancements and the walkability that we see. It's the enhanced entryway into downtown and the placemaking that comes along with it. It's the reinvention of the convention center and all the work that we're going to be doing in that aspect. We just talked about the Serine House last week. That's on the west side of this project. We've been talking about ASU and the post office. That's on the east side of this project. This is a project I think that's really important for what we want downtown Mesa and this particular portion of downtown Mesa to look like and to reflect the work that this council has put into those efforts with bringing residential and university students and others all downtown in a core location. And this will enhance that. It will enhance the entryway into downtown. And so we're very optimistic that we can come back to you after they've had an opportunity to move forward with a plan that balances all the concerns that we've heard. Like I said, anytime you change something, there's going to be pluses and minuses, but we think we can get a lot more pluses than minuses by the time that we get a final product in place.
Great. Ms. Duff?
I think Julie was ahead of me.
Oh.
Go ahead.
You
Julie?
probably are going to talk longer than me, so.
Yeah, probably.
Although I do have several questions, but, so if we're going out for design, so questions that we have about like maybe the feature you're talking about in the middle of the roundabout or the actual delineators and all that kind of stuff will come back to us for, will it come back to us for input or?
Council, as I said, I don't expect this to be the last conversation
Yeah.
about this project. So I think as we move forward through the design process and get more details, we'll be updating council and, through the Sustainability and Transportation Committee and council as we do so.
Okay, I've mentioned this to several people, but there are some delineators being put up around the valley in different cities that are atrocious. So I just want to make sure we don't do anything like that. But also, I thought it was interesting. We got an email from someone that was talking about that the delineators actually are not safe for cyclists, which is opposite of what we've been hearing. And anyway, so I would just like to dig a little deeper on that as well. Like, what is the best thing for cyclists and what does make someone feel safer? And I know we've done a lot of talk and research, and maybe there's just a difference of opinion out there, but I thought that was interesting because it's someone who knows what they're talking about. While I appreciate everything that you just said, why we're focusing on this, this will only be helpful to cyclists if they can connect to it from north or south or east or west. So, and I get that we can't do it all, but is there still pathways for people to get to this part on their bike, or will it just be the people who live in this area that can use it on their bikes? Like, there's still the pathway for them to be able to get to this area.
Councilmember Spilsbury, that's a good question. Center Street today has existing bike lanes from Main Street north. And so those will continue to be there. And so with this first phase, there'll be a connection to be able to get to, the shared use pathway to the north on a bike lane.
Just maybe not as
it won't be
safe or
as
optimal
enhanced,
as what
yes.
enhanced. Okay.
Unless you'd like to advocate that we just go ahead and do it protected
Well, I
all
know,
the
I
way
just-
to the canal pass. I'm with you there.
Like
if
the
that's what
First
you want.
Avenue thing was like, great, we have one section that we can drive on safe or ride on safely, but to where, right? Like there was no connectivity to make that.
Correct.
Anyway, so I just want to make sure we're,
Understood, and we always have to start in one
Somewhere,
place. I've had this
right.
conversation with Councilmember Goforth also with the pathway that's being built in her district. We have to start someplace, and we understand it's going to take years to build out and connect everything, but we have to start somewhere.
I've asked this before and I'm kind of forgetting the answer. Are there bus stops along Center Street?
There are bus stops along Center Street, and transit was heavily involved in our feasibility study, and we will accommodate the bus stops. Most of them are buzz stops, but we'll accommodate them with this project.
So if there's only one lane of traffic, it's not going to back up traffic horribly, or, that's just what I'm picturing.
And those are some details that we still want to work out. But a lot of it may be the trade-off between, do we remove 3 or 4 spots for parking and there's a pullout for the bus, or do we want to keep the bus in the travel lane but there's no dwelling like the buzz does in some places in downtown along this segment. So are you stopped for 15 to 30 seconds while it stops? Possibly, but those are details we'll work through.
Okay. I do just want to still acknowledge it gives me a little bit of discomfort to take out a traffic lane. It just does, because, I just get nervous about when we have concerts and large events at the convention center and how bad the traffic is backed up already with 4 lanes of traffic. So I just want to make sure we're really looking at that, and we've figured out other ways to get traffic in and out of that area. I don't want it to become an issue where people don't even want to come down here because it takes so long to get in and out of traffic. I know I might be alone on that, but I want to make sure. And then, we have these dreams about our convention center and reimagining what that whole area can look like. So I also just want to make sure we're looking ahead to what the needs will be for that. And in the future, as we increase capacity there, because that's the whole goal of what we've talked about for the convention center, that we're not limiting it by having this reduced traffic lanes, I guess. So, and then I love that we're going to have more public outreach and look at all this stuff, but I also feel like we've been dragging this project for years and years at this point. So I would want it to move quick so we can actually use this money that has. What?
You're my hero.
No, but I just this is obviously something that people want and that they have wanted for years. And I don't want it to get caught up in so many details and outreach that, we got to do what we got to do, but let's not drag this on for longer than necessary.
So noted.
Okay. I said you were going to talk a long time and then look at me, but there you go. I think I'm done.
Miss
No,
Duff.
you're awesome. You're awesome. I just wanted to point out a few things. I appreciate the comments. There's a lot of comments there. And that we will do some more public outreach. Just as a reminder, when we did the 24 bond, we did outreach on it with the renderings citywide, and it did receive some positive feedback. But now, once we get into the design side of it and have all the that worked out, then doing that public outreach to make sure we're addressing all the issues is excellent. I'm excited that we are going to move forward as quickly as possible, especially when some council members won't be around forever. Year and a half, by the way. Anyway, but I do want to point out also that between Pepper and University is the only 4-lane road that we have in the square mile. That's the only stretch. And it ends up like a divider. Way back when, I guess McDonald was the center of the downtown, and that's why we had the clock there and such. Mm-hmm. That was, and so this side wasn't really built to be, like the middle of downtown, but now it is, and we have so much development going on with the grid. Crust is supposed to be opening by the end of the year, some other developments on the east side of Center, and bringing the street together and connecting it with the convention center and the hotel, Serene and everything, because people don't come from the convention center down here. It doesn't feel like a connection. It feels like a highway, so they just kind of stay. And so pulling it downtown so Center becomes the center of our downtown, I think will really help with development. And also, I had read a study that was, well, it was actually a project that was in Lancaster, California. They took 9 blocks of a 5-lane road and they transformed it into a pedestrian-friendly project. You know, the shade trees, what we're doing, shade trees, bike lanes, narrowing lost lanes and such. They generated over $270 million in local economic output and attracted $130 million in private development, and more than 800 permanent jobs were created, and tax revenue from the area nearly doubled. Traffic collisions and injury-related crashes decreased significantly. Local businesses populated all through there, and it became a place for the city. And I think the center has the opportunity to really have more economic feel as people populate it, whether they're walking and biking, becomes a centerpiece of our downtown that we can also look at also as an economic development engine, and pulling together our downtown and having that additional connections to all the great assets that we have. Also, I'm not too worried about the congestion so much because we have the Mesa Arts Center. We have events there majority of nights every week. They only have 1 lane all the way around, and it hasn't been an issue. Doesn't have as many access points as the convention center, which has its University and Third Place and Centennial, and it's only, anyway, I'm not concerned about that. I think the convention center would do better when the convention center space was in a place that was exciting and walkable, and hey, we want to have our convention there because we want our people to be in this great space instead of like, what is there around there? So I think I'm not worried about the traffic. This is downtowns are a place for people, and the benefits of that in quality of life and the economics of it, and giving mobility to all people, all ages, and creating community. We don't realize, when I lived in East Mesa for a long time, and I came down, I didn't realize how much just walking or biking from place to place in a small geographic area, how much I connected with people and got to know people, and really kind of like got the news of what was going on, and that's how I got to know people in downtown. I fell in love with the community so much that pretty much I started running for city council, well, planning and zoning and everything. But it had started me on the journey of caring about where I lived and what I could do to try to make it a better place for everybody, because I fell in love with the community, and I didn't realize I didn't have a garage. I had a porch. I walked everywhere, biked, and I just met so many amazing people, and still to this day, all the people here. And I think having that connection point on the street, as well as businesses love people walking and biking in front of their business. It's awesome. It does work out economically too. I think those are kind of the main points. I mean, I could talk a day about all the benefits of this, but I know you've listened to me quite patiently for many years on this project, and I appreciate the support to move it forward quickly.
Thank you. Mr. Adams, any comments?
No, interesting discussion, and I think it's an interesting project that in the overall is a good idea. So anxious to see what additional information that Eric brings forth, and go from there. Thank you.
You bet. Thank you. And I think hearing from the consultant on bike lanes is important to me. We have advocacy from both sides. One saying Center Street's just fine the way it is. Others is saying, would like the narrowing and then the separation of the bike lanes. So, and then the walkability, the shade, the sidewalks, everything. And I think it comes down to money, what we're going to spend for this capitalization of this project. So look forward to hear from you again, Eric, not to repeat that.
Can't wait.
Okay. Anything else? Oh, Ms. Goforth.
Eric, what is the capacity of Center Street right now?
from a vehicular standpoint as far as, typically when you look at a 4-lane collector street, that's what what Center Street is today. You can handle anywhere from 15 to 20,000 vehicles a day on it.
And how many vehicles go up
That
and
is a
down?
good question. This section, I would have to look. The most we found on any section of Center Street was just under 10,000 vehicles a day, which 2 lanes can handle. And
So
then-
I guess it's safe to say there's plenty of capacity.
Yes, I think whenever we bring forward a project like this, we make sure that we're not going to all of a sudden degrade capacity so much that we're going to have constant traffic jams, right? And so we've identified collector streets that are extra wide, and we don't need those extra lanes for the existing vehicular traffic that's there.
Yeah, I think Mesa's done a good job of, historically building streets that are super safe for big and wide and safe for vehicles. I think that a project like this is now looking at everybody who uses a street, right? And says it should be safe for everybody who uses the street. We've focused on vehicular traffic, and we've kind of, I'm going to say it, we've neglected the bikers and the walkers. And I think what we're seeing is we have a large group of those people in the city of Mesa that do that. And they are asking us to look at transportation and street design and construction with them in mind as well, and their safety. So for me, this is about safety for everybody. And it's already safe for the car. How do we make it also safe for people? The other thing I would say is we as a council have said a priority and a goal is to have a vibrant downtown. And the way you do that is you get people out and walking about, right? So that, that comes along with change. I mean, what we're saying is right now, our downtown is not exactly what we want it to be. We'd like it to be a little bit more vibrant. We'd like people to walk around and shop and be out and about. Well, that takes some changes. So we have to sometimes make some hard changes. If we want that and yet we're not going to make the change and we're going to stay with the status quo, we can't be surprised when our downtown doesn't change and become what we say we want it to be. So I guess I would just say a little bit on my soapbox let's make the change that supports the goal that we say we want. And I think that the
Mayor?
project is one. Thank you.
Mr. Adams?
I was just reminded, listening to the comments, Eric, maybe I made an assumption that we've already done some flow measurements, traffic volume measurements before we've come this far on the proposal. Have we? Or if not, I assume we're going to measure the actual number of cars on a given weekday or on a given afternoon or evening, or as Councilmember Spilsbury mentioned, during events. So have we actually measured that traffic volume, or is that something you intend to do?
Councilmember Adams, as part of the feasibility study, and I'd be happy to share that with you, we took traffic counts on weekdays and weekends. I don't believe we did anything for events around the convention center. And the whole first part of this feasibility study was looking at doing traffic analysis and making sure that we can make this work, that it's feasible to do.
Okay, thank you. I assumed you had. Just wanted to double check. Thank you.
Councilmember Adams, if I can just butt in, during the micromobility study, there was a study and looking at the traffic counts and then recommendation was on Center Street, that losing the lane, it wasn't going to change the traffic speed at all. Everything was going to be status quo. The volume was so low that losing a lane wasn't going to change it. We have that information somewhere. Anyway, the micromobility study confirmed that idea that losing the lane on that stretch between First Street and University was going to allow traffic to flow as usual.
Good. Well, thank you. I know you're much more familiar with the details and the data on this, so thank you.
Very good. Council, any more questions? All right. Mr. Butler, we're all good to move forward?
All good, yes, sir.
And Eric's got his direction?
Thank you.
All right, with that, we'll move over to item 3 is to acknowledge the receipt of minutes. Is there a motion to do that? Ms. Pillsbury, thank you. Ms. Goforth, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Next is current event and conferences attended. Council members, do you wish to share anything? I'll start with Ms. Goforth. Do you have anything you'd like to share?
Well, I guess since Vice Mayor Summers is, Vice Mayor Summers isn't here, or do you want to talk about Fire Station 224 groundbreaking
No,
we
you
had
can start it
yesterday
out.
morning, which was great, in Southeast Mesa. That's going to help with response times and safety down in our growing part of the city. Councilmember Spilsbury and I also attended the East Valley quarterly meeting where we get together with council members from the East Valley and share best practices and ideas and try to collaborate. And we met at Mesa Gateway, which was great, and we got a tour of the airport, and they had a lot of questions for Brian O'Neill and Ryan Smith, and they gave a great tour and answered all the questions about all the development going on and the great things happening down there. I think that's it for now. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Pillsbury?
Those were the two I was going to mention.
All right, Ms. Heredia? We're good? Ms. Duff?
Yeah, I want to mention that last Friday I attended a performance at the Mesa Arts Center, and they started this new Club 48 exclusive arts experience. So for members who want more engagement with the arts, a connection to the artists, and talking to one another, they provided some gelato and just creating, sharing among the arts community and being excited about what we have at the Arts Center. So I really enjoyed that, and I thought it was a good measure that we're taking in order to engage our Mesa Arts Center members. And I think that's about it. But anyway, just glad to see that. And members, if you're interested, look for it. And the next time you go to the Mesa Arts Center and see if it's attached to the performance you're going to.
Great, thank you. I'll just add, I was really grateful for Fire Station ribbon cutting, well, actually groundbreaking, and have that there. Ribbon cutting can't come soon enough, apparently, for Mr. Summers' 6-month timeline. It's going to be a year in the build for that facility, so that'll be great for that area. Yesterday, I was, to Ian Linson, we toured Waymo, Waymo manufacturing facility in South Mesa. It's phenomenal. They build all the Waymo cars in Mesa and shipped out throughout the whole United States. So Mesa has a unique mark. Magna is the manufacturer for the cars, so, and Waymo there. So it's pretty.
They employ a lot of people, too.
They do, about 200 employees out there. So we toured that facility. Ian, thank you for setting that up, and just a great tour. Mayor Hartke from Chandler attended as well, so we bantered back and forth. I guess Waymo's kind of started in Chandler, but ended up in Mesa, so we got the better end of the deal. And Miss Brown attended with us as well. Mr. Butler, can you share future meetings for us?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, we'll be back on Monday for study session at 5:15, followed by the council meeting at 5:45. And then next Thursday, we'll have study session again at 7:30 a.m. back in this room. So
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Ms. Duff, Mr. Heredia, thank you. All in favor say aye.
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 Thank you. Motion passes. Have a great rest of the week.